I wasn't looking for anything that day, just a cone of pistachio in a place that smelled of sugar and childhood. But something shifted the moment I saw him, half hidden behind a tower of dirty dishes, water dripping down his arms like he'd just pulled his hands out of a rainstorm. It had been a rough morning. My client bailed on a meeting I'd spent days preparing for, and my assistant called in sick again. At 45, you'd think I'd have mastered the art of not letting little things get to me, but I hadn't. The ice cream shop on 9th was a detour, a quiet place where no one expected me to lead, inspire, or pretend I had my life in order. The bell above the door jingled as I stepped inside, and the scent hit me instantly. Vanilla, syrup, waffle cones baking fresh behind the counter. It was almost empty, except for a couple of kids at a table near the window and a tired-looking girl at the register. Then I saw him. Back in the corner, by the stainless steel sink, he was elbow-deep in suds. His shirt clung to his back from the steam, a few wet curls sticking to his forehead. He couldn't have been older than 21, maybe younger, just a boy. But there was something in the way he moved, unhurried and focused, like this tiny act, cleaning up after people who'd never think twice about him, was something sacred. He glanced up. Just a flick of his eyes, blue and startlingly clear. Our gaze caught for a second, just 1 second, but it was enough to unearth something in me I hadn't let surface in years. Longing, sharp and sudden. I pretended to study the menu. He went, back to scrubbing. I should have left it at that. Ordered my cone, gone home, maybe poured a glass of wine and watched something forgettable on TV. But instead, I took the seat by the wall where I could still see him, and waited as if I had all the time in the world. I didn't. But I wanted to know what it was about him, this stranger with dishwater on his forearms and sorrow in his eyes, that made the silence in my life feel suddenly loud, and I couldn't explain why my heart beat a little harder when the girl at the counter called out, "Hey, Jamie, can you take out the trash?" Because when he turned, pushed back his damp hair, and stepped out into the front, I knew I was already too far gone, and he didn't even know my name. His name was Jamie. I learned that a week after that first afternoon, when I returned for no good reason except that I couldn't stop thinking about him. I'd sit with my cone, always pistachio, because I figured if I changed flavors, it'd look like I was trying too hard, and pretend to scroll through emails while sneaking glances whenever he moved past the counter. It was innocent, I told myself, curious. But every time he caught my eye and smiled, soft, unsure, like he wasn't used to being looked at with warmth, I felt something that didn't feel so innocent. Eventually, I started talking to him. Small stuff, easy stuff. How late they stayed open, whether the waffle cones were made fresh. He'd answer with a kind of quiet politeness, but sometimes when the shop was empty and the girl at the register was on break, he'd linger. "You're the pistachio guy," he said once, grinning as he wiped his hands on a towel. "And you're the one who makes washing dishes look poetic," I replied before I could stop myself. He blinked, then laughed, a surprised, boyish sound that made my stomach flutter. "That's definitely a new one." I learned he was 21, just out of community college, working here to save up for something bigger. He hadn't figured out what yet. He liked sketching, didn't care much for sweets, and took his breaks behind the shop where the alley smelled like garbage, but the quiet was nice. Somehow we fell into a rhythm. I came in more often. He started sitting across from me during his breaks. Our conversations grew longer. We teased, we joked, we shared little pieces of ourselves like breadcrumbs leading somewhere we weren't ready to name. "You always wear those shirts," he said one afternoon, gesturing at my usual button-down. "You some kind of professor or something?" "Advertising. Creative director," I told him, a little sheepishly. "But maybe I just like looking presentable." He nodded, then smirked. "You look like someone who reads poetry at jazz clubs." I leaned back, grinning. "You say that like it's a bad thing." "No, he said, after a pause. I think it suits you. I didn't know what to do with that, with the way his eyes lingered on me just a second longer than necessary, or the way his hand brushed mine once when he slid into the booth and neither of us mentioned it. Then came the rain. The shop closed early that day, flooding in the alley, power flickering. I was about to leave when Jamie caught up to me at the door, water dripping from the brim of his cap. Your car won't make it through the side street, he said. They're already blocking it off. Want to wait it out inside? I hesitated, out of politeness, not uncertainty. We sat by the window in the dim light, thunder rolling above us like something ancient and angry. He pulled off his wet hoodie, revealing a thin white tee underneath that clung to his skin, and my thoughts got loud. You cold? I asked, voice tighter than I intended. A little, he admitted, rubbing his arms. Without thinking, I shrugged off my blazer and handed it to him. His fingers brushed mine again, bare skin this time, and I swear the contact burned. Thanks, he murmured, slipping into it. It looked comically big on him, sleeves covering his hands, the hem down past his hips. But he smiled like it meant something. And when he looked at me after, eyes soft, voice quiet, he asked, "Why do you always come here alone?" I opened my mouth, closed it again. "I guess I just like the company," I said, finally. He didn't press me, just nodded, a hint of a smile at the corner of his mouth, and turned his face toward the rain. I watched the way the light caught the edge of his jaw, the steady rise and fall of his chest, and wondered if maybe, just maybe, he felt the same storm brewing that I did. It was Jamie's idea, though he pretended it wasn't. "You should come by Saturday," he said one afternoon, towel slung over his shoulder, arms slick with soap and water. "We're doing a little, well, not a party, more like a cleanup night. Inventory, deep cleaning, some new paint. Everyone's chipping in after close. We'll probably order pizza." He tried to sound casual, like it was no big deal, but he didn't look at me when he said it. His fingers played with the corner of a napkin, folding and unfolding the same edge over and over again. I should have said no. I had nothing to do with this place, just a regular customer who stayed too long and asked too many personal questions. But something in his voice, maybe the hope, the curiosity, the dare, made me nod. "All right," I said. "If there's pizza, how can I say no?" He smiled, and for a second, he looked shy, like he hadn't expected me to agree. That Saturday, I showed up after hours, dressed in jeans and a faded t-shirt I hadn't worn in years. The shop was half lit, smelling like lemon cleaner and something faintly burnt. The other employees were already there, laughing, scraping tape off the floor tiles and pulling chairs away from the wall. Jamie was by the counter, standing on a step stool and trying to reach a corner above the freezer where someone had taped. "An old paper star. You came," he said when he spotted me, smiling wide and boyish. "I didn't think you would." I said I would, didn't I? "Yeah," he said, climbing down. "But people say stuff all the time." It was an offhand remark, but it landed deeper than he knew. We worked side by side for hours, him painting, me helping where I could. We ended up in the back storage room at some point, sorting mismatched cups and napkin packs. The air was warm, tight, the single overhead bulb casting everything in a low yellow glow. Jamie tugged a box from a shelf too high for him and stumbled. I caught it, steadied it, my hand brushing against his. Again. Always these small electric moments. "You're like a ninja," he said, grinning. "Or maybe just tall. Maybe just someone who didn't want to see you get knocked out by 10 pounds of paper cups." We were close, too close. The kind of close where I could see the small freckle on his neck just below his ear, where the scent of his shampoo mixed with sweat and lemon cleaner and made my thoughts fuzzy. He sat down on an upside-down bucket and sighed, wiping his brow with the back of his arm. "I hate this room. No windows. Makes me feel like I'm gonna suffocate. You want to take a break?" He looked up at me, hesitated, then nodded. Yeah. Let's go out back, where the alley is. We slipped outside, the heavy back door thudding shut behind us. The alley was damp from yesterday's storm, but the air was cooler, cleaner. He leaned against the brick wall, legs stretched out, blazer sleeves rolled up to his elbows. I don't usually like people. That came out of nowhere. He said it, softly, eyes on the wet pavement. I mean, I'm nice, I can talk, whatever, but I don't let people close. Not really, never felt worth it. I didn't say anything, I just watched him, and waited. But I like talking to you, he added after a moment. It's easy, even when it shouldn't be. I felt something shift in my chest, a door quietly unlocking. I sat beside him on the low ledge, our arms brushing. He didn't. Move away. I like talking to you too, I said. Maybe too much. He looked over, his expression unreadable. Then he laughed. Quiet, almost sad. You ever think we're weird? How do you mean? You're like this guy in his 40s with a clean life and pressed shirts. And I'm a dishwasher who lives in a studio apartment with a broken heater. I tried to smile, but it didn't quite come out right. Maybe that's why I like being around you, I said, honestly. You make the rest of my life feel less staged. His breath hitched slightly. Then he nudged me with his shoulder. You're not that staged. I've seen your messy car. We sat in silence for a while, the hum of the city behind the walls. I could feel the heat of him beside me, not touching but close enough to want to. I watched the way his fingers tapped lightly on his thigh, nervous, uncertain. His eyes flicked to mine, then away again, then back. I think about you, he said suddenly, voice barely audible. The words sat heavy in the air. I think about you too, I replied, because it was the truth, even if it scared the hell out of me. He didn't move, didn't speak, but his hand, trembling slightly, shifted, closer to mine on the concrete ledge. We didn't touch, not yet, but I could feel the space between us tightening, like a string being pulled taut. I wanted to reach for him, to close that last, trembling inch. But I also wanted to stay in that moment forever, where everything still lived in possibility, because once I touched him, everything would change, and I didn't know if I was ready, but I knew I wanted to be. We didn't talk much after that night in the alley. Not because something went wrong, more like something had clicked into place between us, and we were both too aware of it. The tension hadn't gone away. If anything, it grew louder in the silences. Jamie still greeted me with that same crooked smile whenever I came into the shop. Still tossed me a spoon with a sample scoop and said, "Try this, it's weird. You'll hate it." Like nothing had changed. But everything had. At least for me. He started lingering when I stayed too long, sitting beside me when the place was almost empty. Making conversation that felt more like searching. Then came the storm, a real one this time. Summer thunder, angry clouds, rain that fell sideways and turned streets into rivers. It hit late one evening, while I sat inside with my book and a half-finished coffee. I was about to leave when Jamie darted from the back, soaked from running out to take the trash. "Don't," he said, seeing me gather my things. "You'll drown out there. I have an umbrella. It's a toy umbrella. I saw it. Looks like it'd fold under a sneeze." He was shivering, his wet shirt clinging to him like a second skin, the sharp lines of his collarbone and shoulder blades on full display. "Stay. Just a bit. The rain'll ease up soon." He disappeared into the back again and returned with a towel draped over his head, his shirt replaced by a faded hoodie. He threw me one of the shop's spare t-shirts with the logo on the chest. "Here," he said. "If you're staying, might as well not sit there soaked." I hesitated. "You want me to change here?" "No, you weirdo. Bathroom's to your left." I laughed, shaking my head, but I went. I did change, and when I came back, Jamie was sitting behind the counter with 2 cups of mint tea, legs folded up, like he'd been waiting for me. I don't know what it was. Maybe the flicker of the candle someone had left burning behind the register. Or the way the rain rattled the windows, boxing us into a space that felt too intimate, too quiet. But something cracked. "You always do this," I said softly, half without thinking. He looked up, brow furrowed. "Do what?" "You pull me closer, then act like you didn't." His smile faltered. He didn't respond right away, which wasn't like him. Jamie always had a comeback. "I don't mean to," he said eventually, voice low. "Maybe not, but you do." I watched him swallow hard. He stood and paced a few steps, restless energy rolling off him like static. "You ever think about it?" I asked. He stopped. "About what?" I didn't answer. I just let the question sit. He turned to face me fully, fingers tugging nervously at the hem of his hoodie. "Of course I do," he said. "You think I don't notice the way you look at me? Or how I feel different when you're around? I try not to, but..." "But?" Jamie walked closer. Slowly. Like he didn't trust his feet to carry him all the way. He leaned against the counter beside me, close, but not touching. "I didn't plan any of this," he said. "I didn't think someone like you would ever look at someone like me." "Why not?" He laughed, bitter and soft. "Because you have your life figured out. A nice car, clean shoes, a full fridge. I sleep with 2 blankets because my heater doesn't work, and I lie to my landlord about how many hours I work. That doesn't matter to me. Maybe it should." I shook my head, breathing slow and shaky. "I don't care about your heater, Jamie. I care about the way you laugh when you're nervous, how you pretend not to like terrible ice cream. Flavors, even though you always eat them first. How you remember exactly how I take my coffee without me ever saying it out loud." He blinked, lips parting slightly, like I just said something dangerous. "I think I fell for you somewhere between you pretending to hate pistachio and asking me why I always look tired on Mondays." The silence after that was heavy, weighted, with everything I couldn't say. Jamie looked down, then stepped closer. Our knees touched. My breath caught. "I'm scared," he whispered. "I don't want to mess this up. You're the first person I've let in, and I don't know how to do it right." "You don't have to do it right," I said. "You just have to be honest." He looked up, his eyes raw and vulnerable, rimmed with a kind of hope that scared me. "I think I'm in love with you," he said. The words felt like they bent the world, like gravity shifted in the room. I reached for him before I could think twice, hand grazing his cheek. He didn't flinch, didn't pull away. His breath was warm, shallow. My thumb brushed just beneath his eye. "Then don't run from it," I said. "Please." He leaned into the touch, just slightly, just enough to make my chest ache. "I've never done this before," he said. "Not like this, not where it mattered. It matters to me." I didn't wait for anything else. I closed the distance between us, slow and trembling, until my lips brushed his. It was barely a kiss at first. A question. He answered it. He pressed into me like he'd been waiting for permission his whole life. Soft and urgent, fingers curling in the fabric of my borrowed shirt. He smelled like soap and mint tea and rain. My hands settled at his waist, unsure at first, then grounding both of us. We pulled apart slowly, breaths ragged and lips swollen with the honesty of it. Jamie looked at me, eyes wide and stunned. "That was... yeah," I said, a little dizzy. "It really was." He leaned his forehead against mine, a small, nervous laugh escaping him. "I can't believe I kissed a man in an ice cream shop during a thunderstorm. You make it sound like a movie." He pulled back just far enough to meet my eyes again. "Maybe it is." Then he kissed me again, quieter this time, like a promise. and for the first time in a long time, I stopped wondering what would go wrong. I just let myself be here with him. We stayed curled up behind the counter long after the rain eased, the soft tap of water on the windows now just a quiet echo to the steady thrum of my heart. Jamie's fingers were laced loosely with mine, his thumb brushing back and forth like he still couldn't believe I was real. I knew the feeling. He tilted his head toward me, his voice barely louder than a breath. "You okay?" I nodded. "More than okay." He smiled, a little bashful, like he was still adjusting to the new weight of us. "You look different." "How so?" "I don't know. Lighter. Or maybe I'm just seeing you in a different light." His brow furrowed. "You sure I didn't?" "Imagine that kiss?" I squeezed his hand gently. "If you did, we both hallucinated the same thing." Jamie chuckled and leaned against my shoulder, his hair still a little damp, smelling faintly of rain and vanilla. "I've thought about it," he murmured. "You and me, for months maybe. It always felt off limits." I turned to look at him. "Why?" He shrugged. "Age difference, your life versus mine. I guess I figured I'd be this temporary person in your world. Someone you'd look at and think, he's sweet, but not serious." I exhaled slowly, threading my fingers tighter through his. "Jamie, I don't do temporary. Not with people who make me feel this much." He blinked, then looked down, cheeks tinged pink. "You're good at this, saying the right thing." "I'm not," I said, smiling. "I'm just finally saying what I've wanted to for a long time." He looked up again, eyes soft. "So what now?" "We figure it out," I said, slowly. "Together." Jamie nodded, leaning back with a content sigh. "Can we do that thing where we pretend we're not scared but also admit we are?" "That's my specialty," he grinned, nudging his foot against mine under the counter. "You know, I used to imagine what it would be like if you just kissed me one day. Thought maybe it'd happen while I was handing you a cone or something. Very dramatic. You'd taste salted caramel on my lips." I laughed, warm all over. "I'm sorry I ruined your fantasy by making out with you next to a mop bucket." He gasped in mock offense. "That bucket is sacred. It's seen all my deepest breakdowns." We fell into an easy silence again, the kind that didn't beg to be filled. His head rested on my shoulder like it belonged there. "I don't know what it'll look like," he said softly. "Us. I mean, I still work late, and I live with 2 other guys in a shoebox of an apartment. I can't exactly take you on fancy dates." "I don't want fancy," I said. "I want real. I want mint tea after closing. I want you telling me weird facts while you wash spoons. I want mornings where I stop by just to see your face." Jamie bit his lip like he was holding back a smile. "You're dangerously romantic for someone who acts so put together." "Only with you," I said. "You bring it out of me." He shifted, turned slightly so we were facing each other again. His fingers brushed my jaw this time, bolder than before. "I want this," he said. "I don't know how it ends, and I don't care. I just know I want more days where you're here, where I don't have to guess." "No more guessing," I promised. He kissed me again then, slow and sure, like something sacred. The storm had passed outside, but inside something new had taken root, something quieter, steadier. A flame we hadn't dared name until now, and I knew, in that moment, with his heartbeat echoing against mine and our laughter still lingering in the air, that this, whatever we were becoming, was only just beginning. A week later, I found myself standing outside the same ice cream shop, the evening sun casting a soft golden hue over the street. The Help Wanted sign was finally gone from the window, replaced with a hand-painted placard that read, "Jamie's. Special, vanilla bean with honeycomb crunch." I'd never seen a flavor so smug. Inside, he was wiping down the counter, his curls a little damp from the heat, his apron dusted with powdered sugar. He looked up when the bell chimed, and I swear, every single time, I still felt that quiet pull in my chest, like I was seeing something rare, something mine. "You're late," he called, grinning. "Your cone's already melting." "Had a client call that ran long," I said, walking in and slipping my sunglasses into my shirt collar. "You always this dramatic when someone's 5 minutes late?" "Only when it's someone important." I stepped behind the counter and stole the half-melted cone from his hand. Smug tastes like honey." Jamie rolled his eyes. "You love it. Admit it." "I do," I said, licking a drip from the side and nudging him with my elbow. Both the smug and the sweetness. He gave me that look again, the one that still made my stomach somersault. That open, unguarded gaze that said he was still figuring it all out but wanted me there for every step of it. "You know," he said, wiping his hands on a towel, "I keep thinking this is going to go away, that I'll wake up and you'll have realized this was just a phase, a rainy night kiss, something soft that doesn't last." I set the cone down and turned to him, closing the space between us. "Jamie, I'm here on purpose. Every time." His breath hitched, but he didn't step back. "You say that like you mean it." "I do. And if I ever stop, I promise I'll say it to your face. But I don't think that's happening. Not when I'd rather spend my weekends here than anywhere else. Not when I get more excited to see you than close a deal I've worked on for weeks." Jamie looked down at our hands, my fingers now loosely wrapped around his, and slowly interlaced them. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay, then I'll try to believe it." "We'll take it one day at a time," I said. "You and me figuring it out." He leaned in and rested his head briefly against my shoulder, the gesture soft and natural, like it belonged there. "And for the record," he murmured, "I kinda love that you're older. Not in a weird way. Just, you feel steady." "Safe," I chuckled. "You make me feel new. Alive in ways I didn't realize I'd numbed out." He smiled, then looked toward the counter. "Hey, do you want to help me name the new flavor? It's your favorite, technically. Only if we name it something ridiculous." Jamie's eyes sparkled. "What about Rainstorm Kisses?" I laughed. "That sounds like a moody indie album." "Exactly." We spent the rest of the evening together, closing the shop, wiping down tables, stealing glances like teenagers. Every touch was a quiet reminder of what had shifted between us. Not loud or rushed, just real. As I walked, him to his bus stop, the late spring air warm and full of that gentle hum of a city settling down for the night, Jamie reached for my hand. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. I squeezed his fingers and kept walking beside him, the rhythm of our steps syncing up like they'd always meant to find each other. This wasn't a perfect beginning. It was better. It was ours, and it was only the start.